Right, Dev, ready to go live?
Yeah, ready. I think.
Perfect. Sure?
Yeah.
Lovely.
Go for it.
Hey, good evening. I'm Andy.
And I'm Debs.
Stay tuned.
It's Codes of the Unknown.
Seven, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hello.
Good evening and welcome.
Again.
Okay.
Yep, so tonight we are joined by the wonderful Craig Bryant.
We are.
Who has a new book release.
I can't wait to read that.
I know. So I'm just going to put this up quickly so everyone can see. It is in the background, but you can't really make it out. But this is it.
So I see you've branched out in that one, Craig, and beyond.
And beyond, yeah.
Well done.
Keep moving forward.
Beyond just 10 miles down the road.
I was going to say, is it all these little tunnels and alleyways?
Yeah.
Keep going. Right. So, can I ask you first about the piano, the update on this?
Yeah. Okay. So when I was on your live stream the last time, I was telling you obviously about the piano,
Mm-hmm.
and the last major incident that I've had been the incident with the letterbox, which I think put the wind up a few people. It put the wind up me a little bit, to be honest.
You're listening to it,
yeah. I mean, still thinking about it now. I mean, you know, it was quite incredible, really. It's probably one of the most convincing physical things I've ever seen. And it was right in front of me. Now, unfortunately, there hasn't been anything quite as dramatic as that. But what we have had is, again, over the last few weeks, we've had a number of occasions where both myself and my wife have seen shadows, especially in the lounge, which is the room next door to the dining room. The dining room itself is still, I mean, I know it's been cold. I mean, it has been, it has been really quite wintry again, hasn't it? But when we had that week where it was really warm weather outside, I mean, it got up to about 17 or 18 degrees here. It was still absolutely freezing cold in the dining room. And there was a couple of times where I could see my breath when I walked in. So it really was really cold. So we've seen shadows a couple of times. We've both had a feeling that when we've been in a room on our own, we've both had the feeling where we've not been alone, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it seemed that Sarah now seems to be picking it up more than she did before. So whether or not it's becoming a stronger presence or she's just a little bit more attuned to it now. I've always seen and felt things, but it's only sort of recently that she started to notice, especially these shadows that seem to go across the room in front of us. So so we've had a couple of those. It does tend to go in sort of peaks and troughs. I think that might be in a bit of a a bit of a trough at the minute. So I'm expecting things to maybe heat up a little bit.
I was going to ask you that actually, whether it was like ongoing or whether it dipped and.
Oh, it dips. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and looking at it from a scientific point of view, trying to work out what's causing it to trough, to peak, if you're not going to peaks and troughs mixed up. What's causing it to peak is quite interesting. I don't have a theory yet, really, other than it does seem to go in a sort of cycle. So
Have you worked out whether it coincides with because you were on about your son last time, weren't you?
He's permanently grumpy, so no, it's not.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I did. No, it's a very valid question. I did at one time think that it was really sort of dependent on his moods.
Yeah.
But Saturdays, he's usually in a pretty good mood because he's waiting for his spending money.
Right,
And the last couple of times actually been Saturday nights when we've both been sat together in the lounge, because we don't spend an awful lot of time with each other during the week, to be honest.
No.
Because Sarah's a teacher, so she does a lot of work in her office at night away from sort of downstairs watching TV on my own or up here doing this. So we don't spend an awful lot of time together really during the week, which is probably a recipe for a happy marriage.
Possibly,
But Saturday nights, we make an effort to spend a bit of time together and watch whatever we want to watch on Netflix or whatever. So we've both sort of, it does seem to be sort of Saturday nights where we both see things at the same time, but we have seen things independently as well. So it's not just every Saturday night. It's just that we both happen to spend more time together on a Saturday than we do during the week. So
yeah. I know you said you're able to pick up on stuff. Can you actually kind of get a sense of anything about what it is that's lurking about, whether it's dark or it's light or it's male,
dark.
female?
Yeah, it's dark. And I think it might be a female. And the reason I'm saying that is because quite a few times, I mentioned this when we last spoke, I in particular have been smelling really strong perfume.
Right, yeah.
But it's old lady perfume, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's no disrespect to the elderly community, because I'm fast approaching it myself.
Yeah, well.
But it's that sort of perfume that I associate with my grandma.
Yes.
Or my mum. That really sort of heavy, floral, not the nice light stuff that my lovely wife wears when we go out. It's the really pungent, horrible,
the overpowering one.
You can smell them coming 5 miles away.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've been picking that up a couple. It's actually happened a couple of times now. But that's been, strangely enough, that's been in the kitchen. But I mean, the kitchen and the dining room and the lounge are all next to each other, really. It's not like it's not like a mansion where one's on one wing and one's on the other. So it's all the same sort of area. And the kitchen, actually, when we moved into the house, we did quite a lot of renovation on it, and that kitchen was originally the dining room. When we first moved in, and there was like a little kitchenette, sort of one story kitchenette at the side of the house, which has now been all changed and everything. So whether that's got anything to do with it, I don't know. But whether this strong smell of perfume is attached to whatever came with the piano, or whether it's something that's been there before, because the house was occupied by an elderly couple before we bought it. And in fact, the lady did pass away very shortly before we actually moved in. So it could be something to do with that. I don't know.
Yeah, it could be. It was funny because that's just knocked my theory on the head, because I was thinking maybe if it was an older person, a lot of older people spent a lot of time in the kitchen, didn't they? But if you're saying that used to be the dining room, then that kind of like
but the old kitchen was the room next door to it anyway. So
maybe then
they'd be coming.
Can I just ask, the smell, the perfume, is it the same type, same smell? Or is it
no, it's really pungent. It's really strong. It's just that really strong smelling perfume that
youth dew, that kind of heavy.
Like what? Sorry.
Youth dew. It used to be all the older people used to wear youth dew.
Like the Avon stuff.
What?
Like the old Avon stuff.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like cheap Avon. Sorry. there's any Avon reps out there.
I don't think they exist anymore.
No,
Do they?
they're not.
No, I don't think they do actually.
It's all online now.
Yeah, but yeah, it's that sort of smell. So a couple of times I've smelt it, probably smells the same, really.
Right,
You know, it'd have to be a fairly noticeable difference in smell, I think, to think, oh, actually, that's
yeah,
because I'm not actually bothered about what it smells like. It's the fact that I can smell it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
And that's what my brain's trying to process. It's not, oh, it smells of lilacs or it smells of,
Yeah.
whatever. It's just that really strong smell.
right.
So it is odd.
Have you learned to play the piano yet?
Do I play them? No.
No, you're not having any lessons.
No. I'd like to, but I just haven't got the time. To be honest, and I do a bit of stuff on my desktop. I've got a MIDI keyboard and I use FL Studio. So the background music to my podcast was a piece that I wrote ages and ages and ages ago, years ago actually. I've sort of updated it, and as I've got more soft synths and that sort of stuff, I've sort of updated it, and it's just a piece of music that I really like, and I thought it was just quite moody, really, for the podcast. So I do stuff. I mean, I am musical to a certain degree, but I can't actually play an instrument, a physical instrument as such, apart from a MIDI keyboard.
You're not going to get a Liberace out of you tonight, then?
No, not tonight.
Just the dress sounds.
That's the weekends.
That's coming up. Oh, that's not coming on part 2.
That's part 2.
Yeah. No, the reason I was asking,
I'm going to say that's after the watershed at 9 o'clock.
Yeah. No, the reason I asked that question, because if there's anyone in the house that does go on the piano or does play anything, do you think that could entice whatever it is that's tied to it to do something itself?
Yeah. I mean, Sarah is musical. She does play the piano, and she also plays the cello.
Yeah.
I remember you saying.
So we've got a cello sat in the dining room that she really says that she should be playing more of, because she's actually really good. But she used to be in a youth orchestra, the Pendle Youth Orchestra.
Oh, right, okay.
Quite a few years ago. So she is musical, and my son is musical. He's inherited all the musical genes from her side of the family, and the artistic side as well, because Sarah's dad was a professional artist, as well as a professional musician as well. So yeah, I am the odd one out, really, in that respect. They are very musical, the pair of them.
Yeah.
And it was Sarah who bought the piano, and James used to play it or practice on it when he was before he became a grumpy, smelly teenager.
Okay.
So whether or not that did have a bearing on it, I couldn't say. It it probably has. Yeah, probably has. Because she's the one that bought it. She bought it with her own money. It's her piano, in effect. So yeah, perhaps whatever it is that came along with it is a little bit more tuned into her, shall we say, because of her musical ability. But I don't know.
Yeah. Could you do me a favour, Craig, if it's all right with you? Could you send me a picture of the piano?
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Just so because you spoke about it a few times. It's just so the audience, the viewers, can have a look. Someone might pick something up from it.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I will do. I'll have to dust it.
Make sure you got the audience.
I will actually. I will. We've got a lot of photographs on the top, so I'll take all the photographs off. And actually, I'll open it up inside, and I'll take a photograph of the brass plaque that's inside.
Oh, right. Okay.
The manufacturer's plaque. Because I don't know whether I mentioned it or not, but it's a German piano.
Yeah.
And it was made in Leipzig in Germany in 1908. So it's well over 100 years old.
Yeah, it is. Got a bit of history to it.
Yeah, well, it was according to the manufacturer. It's the manufacturer's called Bluthner. You can look them up. They have a big showroom shop, whatever you want to call it, in one of the more swish areas of London. And I did actually email them when I didn't know there was a plaque inside it, and we actually had a piano tuner came out because it was well out, and he obviously opened it up and he said there's a plaque here and it's got a serial number on it. So I emailed them and asked them about the serial number, and they came back to me with loads of information that they had about when it was made, when it was shipped, where it was shipped to, who bought it, and it looks very much like it was bought by a family in a place called Haslingden, which is near Bury, which is on the north side of Manchester, and it looks like it was in the family up until the shop in Clitheroe, which we got it from, actually bought it, or got it. I think he said actually got it in a house clearance. So so I think it had been in the same family for probably 80 years, 90 years, so it was interesting. But well done.
No, appreciate that. Cheers, Craig. Right.
No. So
go on.
Out of the new book then, what's one of your favourite stories?
Well, it depends whether you want to go paranormal or do you want to go UFO or do you want to go one of each?
Paranormal.
Okay. The reason why it's called the Black Monks of Accrington is that when I first started doing the podcast, I interviewed a guy who was a paranormal investigator from Accrington, and he'd been doing some investigations into the courts and police station in Accrington, which are now they've been closed. They're not working magistrate court or police station, but the buildings are both Grade 2 listed buildings. They were built in the 1930s, so they can't knock them down. So basically, there'd been a few sort of ghost investigations going on, but there'd been a number of sightings of these hooded figures. And I remember when I was growing up in Accrington, there are well, there still is obviously now. There's a street called Black Abbey Street, and there's also a street which runs at 90 degrees to it called Abbey Street. And of course, it's where there was a 13th century abbey built there. This was way before it was a town. It was actually lands that were owned by one of the local landowners. This was in where are we now? 12th century. So 1170, I think it was 1171, something like that. And it was land that was given to the monks of Kirkstall Abbey. Over your way,
2 minutes down the road.
Right. Well, Kirkstall Abbey, for those people that don't know, as obviously you well know, Deb's quite a big abbey. There was, it was a big concern, shall we say? And some of the monks were given lands by the De Lacy family. And the De Lacy family had been given lands back in 1068 after the Norman conquest. My 33rd great grandfather, William the Conqueror, believe it or not, I can actually trace my family tree back to him. Gave a lot of lands. The lands in Lancashire, especially around this area, weren't particularly well sought after by farmers because it's quite a difficult landscape to farm. So basically, this abbey was built where the River Hyndburn, which is still there, obviously ran through this particular area, and there were a few farms, nothing much really. And basically, what happened was the local farmers weren't too happy about the fact that the monks had come along. They built this huge abbey and stolen all the farmlands off them. Very very religious. And they burnt the abbey down.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mind went black for a second. They actually burnt the abbey down, and the records show that there were 3 monks who died in the blaze.
Right.
Now, there is also an even older legend, which is attached to Black Abbey Street, and I remember this again when I was a kid growing up. Everybody knew about the ghost of Black Abbey Street, and it's the ghost of a young girl who is seen floating down the road. But when people get close to her, she actually bursts into flames.
Wow.
Now, she is apparently the ghost of a young girl who fell in love with one of the monks. And it's, the story goes that her brother found out about this, these secret meetings, and waited for them to meet, and with a couple of his mates jumped out and did the monk in.
Right.
And the young girl, her ghost has been seen regularly ever since. Really, really distraught and crying and wailing and screaming. But as I say, when people get close to her, she actually bursts into flames. So whether that bit about bursting into flames is because of the abbey being burnt down, and the two have sort of become intermixed, or whether it's for another reason, I'm not sure. But but going back to these monks, so these 3 monks, their ghosts have been seen in the area for many decades, as far back as I can remember. And there has been a bit of paranormal activity which has been going on at the police station. In fact, one group that were in the down in the cells actually got locked in to one of the cells for about 4 hours one night. The door actually slammed in front of them. There was I think it was about half a dozen, maybe a few more, maybe about 8 or 9 people in this cell, and the door just slammed shut and locked, and they couldn't open it. They couldn't force the lock, so they had to get the local fire brigade to come out and actually cut them out.
Really?
So that was something that hit the local papers.
Yeah.
But I've had people have contacted me through the website about sightings they've had, independent sightings they've had of these hooded figures, these black monks, and they've been seen, quite away from where the site of the abbey was. There's an area called, it's probably about a quarter of a mile away, and it's called Broad Oak, and it's where there used to be a cotton mill, a huge cotton mill back in the 19th century. But there was a railway had been built to serve the cotton mill. Now the cotton mill's long gone. The railway actually is long gone as well. But where the tracks used to be is still there, and you can actually get up onto it and walk for quite a few miles up to where the station was, at a place called Baxendon, which So I had an email from a guy who worked down near Broad Oak. There's a lot of like little industrial units down there now, and he said that he always walks down the railway lines every morning to go to work, and it's usually really early on, usually about 6 o'clock, 6:30, something like that. And so one particular morning it was just coming light, so it was probably springtime, early summer. He was walking down the tracks on his usual route, and he said he could see it's quite misty, and he said he could see in the distance there was some sort of figure sort of coming into focus as it coming out of the mist. And he said as he got closer, he said he thought it was a kid or a younger person, as he put it, with a hoodie up. But as he got closer, he realised that it was actually a monk's cowl that was over this figure's head.
Yeah.
And it actually turned towards him, and he said he could see that this whatever it was dressed in like a monk's habit. He said it was your typical sort of like, ankle length,
Rope around the waist job.
Rope around the waist job. Yeah, exactly. Hood up, sort of hands like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then he said it just disappeared. But he said it really shook him up,
Yeah.
So there have been sightings all around that area, and there's another street as well, which is pretty close by, called Warner Street. Now, there's been some investigations into Warner Street because it's actually it's one of the most haunted streets in Britain.
Right.
It is, again, going back, decades. I remember people always talking about Warner Street being haunted. There is a pub at the bottom of, because it's on a hill, Warner Street hill. And there's a pub at the bottom called what used to be called the Warners. I'm not quite sure what it's called now. It's probably changed name. But there was always stories of shops up there being haunted. There is a 100-year-old Victorian arcade, small arcade, that you can walk through. That again, there was always rumours of hauntings and ghost sightings and so on in the shops that are in there. And I did some research, found out that one of the shops on Warner Street had a particularly nasty poltergeist that manifested itself as a very tall, thin man with a very big mustache and a tall hat. And it pushed somebody down the stairs, physically pushed them down the stairs. Now, there had been some inference that a Ouija board had been involved at some point, and that it might have been that opened the doorway for this this thing to come through. But there's a couple of interesting things about this. The first one is that there was actually, and I'll just have to refer to my notes.
You're all right.
9th of June, 1896. Okay. There was the murder of a lady called Sarah Coates. Now, her husband owned a wood. He was a carpenter, so he had like a woodworking shop on Warner Street. And I've looked at the census records for 1891, and it's there. There's himself and his wife, and he also had in 1896 he had an apprentice, 15-year-old apprentice called Christopher Hindle. Now, what happened? Christopher Hindle found Sarah Coates. She'd been stabbed and attacked quite violently with a knife, and she was lying on the floor covered in blood. And he claimed that there was a man stood next to her who was very tall and thin, with a hat and a mustache, and carrying a bag. Sounds a bit like Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
And he ran from the scene when Christopher found Sarah.
Yeah,
he ran back across the road to where Mr. Coates was, the carpenter, and said, "Your wife's been stabbed." And he actually, Christopher Hindle was arrested because they thought he'd done it. They charged him with because she died, unfortunately. They charged him with her murder and took him to Lancaster to be tried at the assizes at Lancaster Castle. Now, when he was on trial, the court received an anonymous letter, and the letter basically said that the person who wrote it had been in a public house one night in Bolton, of all places.
Right.
And he got talking to a man who he described as very tall and thin, with a large mustache, who was very drunk. He'd obviously been,
Yeah.
necking it. And he admitted to the murder of a woman in Accrington.
Yeah.
He said, I did it.
Mm.
He shortly afterwards disappeared. He left the pub, and the author of the letter, as I say, it was anonymous, so we don't know who wrote it.
Yeah.
Said that the following morning, his body was found dead on the railway line in the centre of Bolton, near to the railway station.
All right. Okay.
So they don't know whether he was hit. Well, probably wasn't hit by a train because they could identify him, but he probably either jumped or fell off the bridge near the main station.
Right.
Now, unfortunately, the court didn't take the evidence of this letter into account, and Christopher Hindle was found guilty. But thankfully, luckily for him, they decided not to execute him, which, even then they would have done it, under 16.
Oh yeah.
They would have hanged them.
Yeah.
But they decided they just put him in prison, and there are no records of what happened to him after that. But his ghost has also been seen on Warner Street, and he's often seen running from one side of the street to the other. So running from the premises that Sarah Coates was in at the time, running across the road to where her husband had his carpentry shop. And he's been seen quite a few times. But the second interesting thing, because I said there were two interesting things about it.
Yeah.
My sighting of the Shadow Man way back when I was in my late teens, that I told you about when we last spoke, and is in the first book. Cannon Street, where I saw this figure, which was very tall and thin with a big hat. I don't recall a mustache, I must admit.
Yeah.
But it's only about a quarter of a mile, if that, from Warner Street.
Yeah.
And I spoke to a local medium who'd done some investigations into the area, and I asked her if this shadow figure had been seen in other locations, and she confirmed that it had.
Right.
It's on Warner Street, around Cannon Street. There's a church in the centre of the town called St James's Church. Been seen around that area, and they're all linked. They're all within a sort of quarter mile of each other. Yeah. So it's very possible that the shadow figure that I saw all those years ago, which sparked off all this, the first book and all the research and everything since then, could well be the same one that is seen and felt on Warner Street, and is this particularly violent poltergeist. Actually, it's very physical by all accounts.
So do you know, going back to when you had your sighting at the bar, whatever it was, club, what the history of that building was before it became a pub?
There was nothing there before.
Right.
I've had a look. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a part of town that there wasn't. There wasn't a lot of building. There were some buildings in the area, but it was built on, a piece of empty land.
Right.
And there were actually two brothers. The 1896, I think it was, when they were built. There were two brothers. There were two industrialists. They were cotton mill owners.
Right.
And there were two brothers. One of them was extremely religious, and one of them wasn't. And the one that wasn't built what became the Conservative Club.
Yeah.
And the one that was built a church on the opposite side of the road. and they had a competition to see who could build the highest building.
Right.
And the non-religious building won by a few inches, I think. that's the legend.
Yeah.
But I mean, we won't be able to check now because the building's unfortunately derelict and was burnt down. And in fact, I think the church is no longer used as well. It's really sad. And I'm racking my brains in the name of the church. I think it might be called St. Paul's. I'd have to double check. But that hasn't been used as a place of worship for a long time, and I think that's earmarked to be demolished as well. The whole area is earmarked really to be redeveloped, but so no, it's a good question that, because I wanted to know what was on that piece of land before, if there was a building there or something, or if there'd been any historical significance to where it was built, but I can't find anything. I'm not saying there isn't. No. I mean, perhaps just haven't found it yet, but the maps that I've looked at from the sort of late 19th century, the old maps of the town, I can't see that there's anything, anything actually, built there.
So have you had any recent encounters?
Apart from what's going on with the piano, no, I haven't, to be honest.
Right.
I've just really been busy finishing off the book. It's been something that I've been trying to. It's taken me well over a year really to write. It's just been finding time to do it, and it's been getting all the information together, talking to people. Information gathering can sometimes take quite a long time. So I've not been out anywhere really. I've been talking to people in the local area. I mean, there's quite a few stories in the book about just places around here, really, places in the Ribble Valley. I got chatting to a lady who is she lives in the village. Actually, she owns Hudson's ice cream shop in the village.
Right.
World famous. They make their own ice cream. Fantastic.
Do they do licorice ice cream?
No. But I can ask them to do it. I'm sure they would. I've actually got an allotment, and I grow quite a bit of soft fruit, and I give them soft fruit and they make ice cream. So I get lots of ice cream in the summer. But the shop, it's called Hudson's. If you go online and have a look at Hudson's ice cream shop in Chapman, it'll bring a picture of it up, and it's the toll house. That because the road that goes through the village was the main road. It was actually, it's part of the main road that went all the way from Skipton to Manchester. And it was built by a guy, and I kid you not, he was called Blind Jack Metcalf.
Really?
And he was a road builder. So again, people want to Google him, have a look at him. But it was the main road from sort of Manchester up to Skipton. So there's a toll house, and it's she has a resident ghost. She's a medium, is Mandy. I did a podcast interview with her. I can't remember the number it is now, but if people go and have a look at my podcast, they'll find she's called Mandy Paul. She's a medium. She also does out of body experiences. She does remote viewing. She's really interesting. Interesting lady. But she's got the ghost of a lady called Sarah Hudson, who was the original owner of the shop back in the 1930s. She was the one that started making her own ice cream all those years ago, pre-war, in the back. And she's still around. She pops back and makes her presence known quite a lot by all accounts. And her brother as well, who was a coffin maker, believe it or not, used to make coffins in the cellar of the shop.
Right.
And then the pub across the road, which is called the Black Bull, down in the cellars in the Black Bull is where they used to lay out the
bodies.
the bodies when people passed away. So they
Yeah.
had a ready-made supply of coffins across the road. So it's quite a lucrative business, I think.
No, I have.
But interestingly, the Black Bull as well. I was talking to the landlord. Sorry, landlord and landlady actually. They had quite a lot of poltergeist activity when they first moved in. They've been in there a
Right.
number of years now. They said it only sort of lasted about a year.
Yeah.
And she said it seems to have stopped, but she thought, I mean, she was quite interested in what I was talking about and telling her about what I do.
Yeah.
And she said there's a lot of poltergeist activity, things moving around, glasses falling off the bar and breaking on the floor and all that sort of thing. But she said it's gone pretty quiet. But again, you see, I think it's like I was saying before about, going in peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
And I'll try not to get my peaks and my troughs mixed up. But I think it's probably, a good example of that.
Yeah.
So, perhaps there will be some more activity. She said she'd let me know. It's my local. I go in, not every night, maybe every other.
Every afternoon.
When I'm not doing that. There's a bottle of whiskey down here normally, John.
Never far away.
Yeah, but no, she said if anything happens, she'll let me know. So that's I'd quite like to do an investigation there, to be honest.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you, are you planning on doing any investigations?
I've nothing planned, to be honest.
Not
Again,
sure.
no. I mean, apart from I've got some ideas, but I've nothing planned. I'm trying to just take a bit of a break, actually.
Well, yeah, you've been busy.
Because I have been busy, and I'm obviously, I've got quite a lot of guests on my own podcast coming up, and I'm also guesting on podcasts and live streams for your good selves,
everybody else,
and everybody else. So I'm just trying to concentrate on that and juggle everything else that I'm trying to juggle at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly what it's like.
Like juggling cats.
Like herding cats, yeah. So there's some interesting. There is very interesting. Again, sometimes you get people just telling you stuff that you don't expect.
Yeah.
Or you get, not that you don't expect what they tell you, but the person telling you, if you know what I mean. So you wouldn't expect that person to open up in the way that they do.
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier I've got an allotment. So there's a site just on the outskirts of the village. Got a beautiful view of Pendle Hill on one side, and then we'll look down the valley towards down the River Valley down towards Pennygent.
Yes.
Which is 40 odd mile away. So it's a hell of a view.
Yeah.
And there's about I'd say probably about 40 plots on there, something like that. Right. And there's like a stream comes through it, and it's really it's lovely. It's really nice. But I'd heard 2 or 3 sort of odd rumours over the years, because I've had a plot up there myself in about 10 years, but more longer, about 12 years. And I'd heard sort of 2 or 3 sort of odd comments about something strange being down there. Right. And I'd never really pursued it. And then a couple of years ago, when I was thinking of writing the second book, I was having a chat with a woman down there, and I was telling her about the first book. And there was a guy who was on the plot just behind where I was. And as I said, you wouldn't have thought he'd have been the sort of person to suddenly come out with a story like he did.
Yeah.
And I just happened to mention, I said, right, I'm going to have to go, because I was actually doing a radio interview that night, and it was getting in the afternoon, and I wanted to get home, get myself
started out,
get ready for the radio interview. And he said, what's it about? And I said, it's about ghosts, paranormal, all that sort of stuff. And he said, well, you know what goes on down here, don't you? And I said, well, no, what do you mean? He said, something happened. He said something happened to me a few years ago. He said it absolutely, frightened the hell out of me.
Shook him up.
And what it was, he'd come down late one evening because he used to keep chickens.
Right.
So he had to come down and check they were all right, feed them twice a day, and then get them all in and lock them up at night because, it's quite rural where we are. And obviously, we have a lot of foxes.
Yeah.
So he was down and he said it was twilight. It was going dark, winter time. So it was, still relatively mid-afternoon, but it was going dark. And he said he saw this. The only way he described it, he said it was like this black mass that was hovering a couple of feet above the ground.
Yeah.
And he said it came out from behind some trees where the stream runs through. There's an old well that had been dug. Sorry.
Yeah.
Years and years ago, for people on because the allotment site's about 100 years old.
Yeah,
it had been given over by the local landowner because a lot of land around here is owned by a family called the Asherton family, Lord Clitheroe.
Right.
And he'd given this plot of land to the soldiers who came back from the First World War, who'd survived the First World War. So it dates back at least 100 years. And they dug a well so that they had water to use before we ended up having mains water put in 20 odd years ago, I think it was, before my time. But anyway, he said this black mass came out from behind the trees where this well was. And he said it floated across following the line of the fence past there's like a main gate. Like a farm gate, metal farm gate. And he said it floated past there, but and then sort of disappeared off to his right. So it went from sort of left to right, went across, and then disappeared into the hedges. But he said as it was going, he said it was like it was pulsating. It was like this black blob, as he put it. He said, "Yeah, like a mass, yeah." He said it didn't have any arms, didn't have any legs, anything like that. He said, but it was like, and it was just sort of doing that as it was going along. And he said it absolutely frightened him to death.
Yeah.
He said it really frightened him. And I've spoken to quite a few other people down there, not directly, but I've said, have you ever seen anything odd down here or anything like that? And quite a few people have said, well, I won't come down after dark. Or I won't come down when it's going dark because I don't like it. It just don't feel right. So there is definitely something down there.
Yeah. Have you been down there in the dark?
No, but I'm going to do.
Yeah, I'm going to say I would just check it out, see if you can feel it.
Well, yeah, I have, but I've not gone down specifically to see if there's anything down there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been down and
sort your alpacas out.
Sort my alpacas out. Yeah. Well, I've got a couple of bottles of whiskey down there, so
yeah.
No, I have.
We do know if we don't see you again, you've been down and that black mass has come back.
That black mass has gone. But I have been down during the summer when it's been going dark, later on at night.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go down when it's not quite as cold.
Yeah.
I'm going to go down and just sit in my shed because it's my plots. 2 plots along from this guy's, so I can see if I sit in my shed, I can actually see where it went. Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm gonna go down and see whether I can pick anything up or see anything.
Yeah.
You don't thought of like sticking a trail cam up or something like that?
Yeah, I have actually, but I've just not got around to it.
Right.
But yeah, I've thought of sticking a trail cam up. Yeah. But it'd be interesting to see what is down there.
Oh yeah, even if you don't get that, you get other stuff.
Wildlife.
There'll be foxes and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Even just normal nature.
I also, I mean, I think there are big cats around here. And I've said this for a while.
Right.
I've seen 2.
Right.
not big cats, but
Yeah.
much bigger than a domestic. And one of them, it had, the best way to describe it is it was probably about twice the size of a domestic cat. And it wasn't a Maine Coon or anything like that because it had short fur, but
Right,
around its neck, it almost had like a mane.
Lion's mane.
Yeah, so it was like a miniature lion.
Yeah.
And it ran across the road from one hedge to another on an industrial estate just near here.
Yeah.
Right.
I was driving through. It's a shortcut back through to where I live.
Yeah.
And it was broad daylight, and it shot out, and it was jet black. It shot out in front of the car, disappeared into the hedges. But I've also seen when we've got some fields and a woodland behind where I live.
Yeah.
And during the first lockdown, I actually saw something walking along, again, very similar, and it was walking along the tree line.
Right.
In the distance, and I could tell, even though it was quite a way away, it was a few hundred yards away, I could tell it was bigger, much bigger. Than it wasn't a domestic cat. There's no way. And I mean, we have wild deer and all sorts around this area. So there's plenty of food for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that there is something that's, I mean, it's not necessarily a puma-sized animal. Oh, no. I mean, these could have been juveniles. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly.
I mean, possibly is bigger animals around because, it's huge areas of where people don't live.
Yeah.
Huge areas of countryside around here. We've got Forest of Bowland, which is hundreds of square miles. I mean, you know the area well, Deb, don't you? Yeah. So even just around here where I live, although there's villages dotted all over and a main town close by, we've still got huge areas of countryside that could quite easily hide wild cats. So.
Did you notice the tail, Craig? Was it the typical swooping? Or did you not see a tail?
Yeah, no, I saw a tail. It was bushy, but it wasn't bushy, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it wasn't. It looked like just like a normal cat's tail. Really, it's probably the best way to describe it. But it was obviously bigger.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like really bushy, but it wasn't a long thin tail either. So
yeah. Because they have that distinctive, a lot longer than a domestic cat, aren't they? Down and
wasn't that long. Yeah, it didn't. From what I mean, you got to bear in mind that it literally shot across the road.
Yeah.
And I saw it for probably about a second. The one that I saw in the backfield, I watched for much longer, and that seemed to have a similar sort of tail. So it was probably longer than domestic cat, but it was certainly bushier.
Yeah.
And I've had cats over the years. We haven't got any at the minute, but we did have a couple of cats, so I know.
Yeah,
I mean, one.
Know the difference.
Yeah. I mean, one of them was a tortoise shell, and she had a really bushy tail, but it was bushier than that.
Yeah.
So.
Have you had any other reports from around there of big cats? Anybody said anything?
Not big. Debbie Hartswell's BBI map shows 2 or 3 strange things in the area. Yeah. One of them, there was a guy wild camping up on Pendle, as you do, and he reported hearing this sort of screaming going on in the middle of the night, like screeching, but like not. I mean, that could have been owls. I'll be honest with you. Because we do have a lot of tawny owls.
Yes.
And the males make a lovely twit-to-woo sound, whilst the females scream. And it's a really blood-curdling. It really is a blood-curdling scream. I mean, when we first moved in here, and the first time I heard it, I wondered what the bloody hell it was. But so it could have been that. There have been a few sort of odd sightings of in inverted commas, monkey men or what have you, pretty close by.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to remember. There's one up and in the Bowland Forest, not too far from here. There'd been a sighting, I think, up there at one point. A young girl, I think, had seen something. But no, there's not really. People do talk about a lot of wild cats in the area,
right?
I'm quite friendly with a couple of farmers, and the thing about farmers is they tend to be they don't talk a lot about stuff. If they lose livestock, they don't like talking about it.
No.
But people have mentioned that there are a lot of wild cats in the area. Why that is, I'm not really sure, but there does seem to be quite a lot of feral cats, and whether they interbreed and they get bigger over time, I don't know. But no, it was there were two quite odd sightings. So yeah, we've gone off track a bit, haven't we? Really?
Right.
I mean, I was gonna buy a trail cam.
Yeah.
And I was going to pop it over the fence, actually, behind where I live.
Yeah.
And point it towards the woods and the line of the woods and the field, and see if anything was picked up. But I've just never got around to it.
It's just one of those things that you put on your list, in it, and you bypass it.
And it stays there.
Big cats are not really. I'm interested in them, but they're not my main area of
Not
interest.
your priority. No. Right. Should we have a quick break now then?
Yes, we'll have a 2-minute
And then we'll
break.
jump onto something else in the box. Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Superb.
Right. See you in 2 minutes.
2. Room.
Still here.
Yeah, just about.
I've done a run.
Done a run and gone.
Yeah. So, do you want to speak about something else you've got in the new book?
Yeah, we can talk about UFOs.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll just put I'll just put the front of the book up again so people.
No.
Yes.
There we go.
I want to say Lancashire and beyond. I don't know why.
Lancashire and beyond.
Oh yeah.
Well, it is mainly Lancashire, to be honest.
Yeah.
The beyond bit really is because I talk a bit about Todmorden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not far from me.
It's not far from you, Deb. Yeah, it's just over the border. at one time, I think half of Todmorden was in Lancashire and the other half was in Yorkshire, wasn't it? And
Yeah.
I think it's all gone to the dark side now.
Yeah, definitely.
Is it?
But, but there's been some interesting stuff there recently, as we know. There's been the unfortunate case of the calf mutilation from a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
There has been a big cat sighting recently that was in the local newspaper. That was described as a large black puma type animal that jumped out in front of a group of walkers.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, actually. I mean, I was just to go off tangent a little bit. I interviewed Paul last night, Paul Sinclair. He's the podcast just went out today, actually. So
listen to that.
I'll listen to that tomorrow.
Yeah, and again, no, I mean, you know what Paul's like. It was a great discussion. I mean, you don't really need to do a lot of planning when you're interviewing Paul, because he'll just talk, you know. But we were talking about how non-investigators, because let's call ourselves investigators, just for the for the case of this, about how non-investigators can sometimes perceive what we talk about. And sometimes people can, especially if it's the press or the local press. I'm always very skeptical of journalists approaching me about things, and I was approached not too long ago actually by a journalist from the Lancashire Evening Telegraph. They wanted to do a piece on the new book, and I was quite nervous about it. I was a bit guided really about what I was talking about, because I think sometimes they can misquote you. They can say things that are quite there's a bit of ridicule in there. I mean, when they're talking about UFOs, they always have your archetypal picture of a
flying saucer,
flying saucer and an alien in the background. I mean, I know the Kinsella brothers were recently in the press about their work and so on, and I've interviewed both of those. So I think sometimes it was interesting. I was looking at this piece that had been written in the Todmorden paper, and it was online actually. And this is the whole point of what I'm getting to. The lady that saw this puma, the comments that were put underneath were really disparaging. The people that had gone on and just put comments on, and there was a few comments on about UFOs and aliens and woo and all that sort of stuff. So I think Paul was saying last night, he said there's probably a lot of stuff goes on that we never hear about, simply because people are quite reticent still to hold the hand up and say, well, actually I've seen a ghost or I've seen a UFO, or
I've gone past that point now. I used to be like that, but I've gone past that point now.
Yeah, well, I think you have to be true to what you believe in.
Yeah, of course you do.
And you're always going to get detractors. You're always going to get people who are going to take the mickey out of you, or because
what annoys me about that is, why don't they just not say anything and scroll past?
Because the keyboard warriors, aren't they? So, and that's all they are. So somewhere like Todmorden, for instance, there's probably a hell of a lot more goes on, and we're lucky that we have local investigators like Lee Nicholson, who goes up to Todd a lot, and he does a lot of investigation in the area. Does a lot around Pendle.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Well, so it's good. It's good that we have this network of investigators, people who share similar interests.
Yeah.
Because we get to find out things that we wouldn't necessarily, I think, find out simply because a lot of people don't want to come forward.
Yeah.
Because they're a bit worried about being ridiculed. And this incident with this cat was a classic example of that. And I think in that particular case, you have to ask: is that the reason why we had the incident with the calf? The mutilation of the calf. Was it a big cat that did it? Was it this cat? Because this big cat probably is. It's probably its territory around that area, and they do have quite big territories.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And could it have been something to do with that, or was it something UFO related?
Yeah.
I don't know. We will never know. And I sent the photographs. I think depending on what your area of expertise is, depends on how you look at something like that.
Yeah.
And Lee sent me some photographs, which I was really grateful for. And I said, do you mind if I send them to Rick Minter, who's a big cat specialist? And he looked at them and emailed me back and said they're definitely a big cat.
Right.
Because that's his area of expertise.
Yeah, he would know,
And yet, Lee had sent them to one of his other contacts. I can't remember the name now. David Caton.
Oh, yeah.
David Caton. And he got back to Lee and said, no, he said, that's not an animal. He said, that's definitely something else. So depending on what your area of interest is, I think very much cloud your judgment on something like that.
Yeah.
So I look at Todmorden. I look at some of the reports around Todmorden. Obviously, I mentioned the Alan Godfrey case. I actually got in contact with Alan and asked him if I could have a chat with him. But he said he's not doing interviews anymore.
Right.
But he is doing a Hollywood film. So.
All right.
Oh, that'd be why he's not replied to me then.
Exactly. Yeah. Just thinking that.
No, he was very polite. Don't but I just thought it was funny that the email, he emailed me and said, "Well, I'm getting on a bit now," and blah. So fair enough.
Yeah, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah. No, I'm not doing it anymore. Thanks a lot for getting back to me. And best of luck and everything. And then a few months later in the national press, it's like, Yorkshire UFOs, Hollywood film and all this. So that was, I suppose it's the lure of the dollar. Of
course it is. With that filter.
Well, exactly. If somebody wants to make a Hollywood film about me, that's absolutely fine. I'm sure Chris Pine or, somebody will quite happily play me for a few quid.
We all need to be extras, don't forget.
Yeah.
Todmorden is an interesting place. Morecambe Bay.
Is it Damsky?
Damsky. Yeah, he was the guy that went missing for about a week, wasn't it? I think before they found his body. But the perplexing thing about that was they found him on the top of a coal heap. And he was naked, I think, from the waist up. But
his shirt was back to front or something. It was dressed.
He had the suit on. He had a 3-piece suit, but it wasn't fitting him proper.
Right.
It wasn't buttoned up correct or anything like that.
So he couldn't have climbed up because his hands would have been and what have you. Covered in coal dust and that. But he didn't have any coal dust on him at all. It was like he'd just been
2 days stubble.
Yeah, 2 days stubble, and he'd just been plucked. But he also had little holes.
Yeah. And he had some residue on him that they couldn't identify.
No, they couldn't identify what it was. It was like powder burns, wasn't it? Something.
Yeah.
And couldn't identify.
But jelly is something.
Yeah, but of course, that's right. So sort of like something to sort of. I think Alan Godfrey, who obviously was part of the police detail that found him, said it was almost like it had been applied to where the burns were.
Yeah, like it was
just like healing gel or something.
Yeah. It's really, but then of course the odd thing is that not long after that, he had his own experience with the UFO and the missing time, and you know, the hypnosis and everything else that is quite a well-known story. So I mean, something like that, it must just change everything. I mean, it changed everything for Alan. You know, he had to leave the police force eventually because he was, you know, I think he was hounded out of the police force one day and so on. So, but Morecambe Bay is interesting. This all started off with an email from a guy who heard me, I think, on the radio. Gone to my website, which is www.craigbryant.co.uk. Just get it in. He sent me an email, and he said he lives in Barrow in Furness, which is up on the sort of northwest point of Morecambe Bay. And for people that don't know Morecambe Bay, it's about 200 square miles, I think, of mud flats, basically. It's a tidal estuary. So twice a day the tide comes in and twice a day the tide goes out. And it's all quicksand and mud flats, and it's a very atmospheric place. It's really quite beautiful. I've always been drawn to it. I will drive up to lots of little villages all around the coast. The main town is Morecambe, but I'll try and keep clear of there really because it's all right, but it's, you know, there are nicer places to visit. And I go up there and I sometimes do a bit of fishing, and I just get it's very peaceful, but there is something very atmospheric about it. Something really paranormal, really. I think probably is the best way to put it. It's just got that feeling to it.
Sorry, Craig. Can you just read out your website again?
Yeah, it's craigbryant.co.uk. Okay,
I'll scroll it across the bottom.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So just
like that.
There we go. Brilliant. Yeah, so just talking about Morecambe Bay. So I got an email from this guy, and he lived in Barrow. He was a pleasure fisherman himself, so he used to go out and do a lot of night fishing, and he used to fish off Walney Island, which is like a little spit of land that comes out from Barrow. And if you stood on Walney Island looking out across the bay, you're actually looking sort of east and southeast over towards Morecambe and all the little villages around there. And Heysham, which has got a nuclear power station. And he said that several times they'd seen lights going across the bay at night. And he said they'd seen sort of orbs and you know, various other strange lights hovering above the sands, sometimes close into where they were, sometimes a bit further out. He said, but they all seem to converge over towards Heysham, where the power station is. So I started just doing a bit of research and looking into if there'd been any other sightings over the years. And going back to, they all follow the same pattern. They're all triangular craft.
Right.
They all go back to, well, the earliest one I could find was 1937. So that's obviously pre-war. So that would debunk the idea that there's some sort of military aircraft. They've been seen, there's been lots of sightings over the years of, you know, any number of these objects. So they're usually in 3s or 4s or 5s. But there was one occasion where they were seen by a group of fishermen who were out in the bay. And they said that there were upwards of 30 of these objects above them, which is a lot.
It is.
And I'll just check. Bear with me a second. It was about 1992. And in 1997, there was a triangular object again seen over the power station. And there was also a daughter and her father, saw a triangular object. Again, these are all in broad daylight. Saw a black triangular object over the bay. They were in one of the more secluded parts of the bay, and it actually came towards them at speed, they said, over the sands, very low, and stopped about 30 meters away from them.
Right.
And then shot up, just went straight up in the air and disappeared. And they described it as just being solid black, like a triangle, no lights, no
Did they give
window.
an estimate as to how big it was?
No, the report didn't say how big it was. Strangely enough, the most of the reports that I've seen have said that at least the size of a family car, if not bigger. But because sometimes they're at distance, it's quite difficult to sort of gauge the size, especially when it's against the backdrop of mud flats and sand flats.
Yeah, nothing to reference it by.
Nothing to reference it by. No.
So
yeah, there's been quite a number of sightings of these, but they're all the same type of black triangular craft. So if they are military, which is unlikely given the fact that they're out in broad daylight. If there's some sort of secret prototype, why they're out in broad daylight, in or over an area where they can be seen for miles around, because you can see from one side of the bay to the other on a clear day. Even though it's a big area of sand and what have you, and the one where they saw like nearly 30 odd, they said, of these objects all together in formation. If it was a secret RAF or government project, they won't be sending 30 of them out in one go broad daylight. So that's really strange. But I think a few people have said to me, well, why do you think it is? Why are these being seen over there? I think it's the nuclear power station.
I was going to ask you that. Do you think that's what's
however, back in 1937, the nuclear power station obviously wasn't there.
No.
So the sighting in 1937, I think, is interesting. Again, that was described as a black triangular object. So that's a bit perplexing. I think it's probably the best way to put it. I've been racking my brains as to why that would be. Maybe there's something with the land itself. Maybe there's something to do with the bay. Maybe it's the geology that's bringing them in. I've said before about ley-lines and about the geology of certain places, like Pendle Hill, for instance, that has a lot of UFO sightings. And as I said, there is a definite feeling. I have a definite feeling of something when I'm in the Bay Area, when I'm in Morecambe Bay. Is there some sort of magnetic field around the area or something like that that's bringing these objects in? I don't know, but they do seem to, recently, certainly since the Second World War, or certainly since Heysham Power Station was built, they seem to be more focused on that. And interestingly, around the coast, if people get maps out and have a look if you don't know the area, if you go around from Barrow and head north and you go up the Cumbrian coastline, so the Lake District coastline, the Sellafield.
Yes, there is
another nuclear power station. In fact, I don't think it produces power anymore. I think it's a recycling, sort of plutonium recycling center or nuclear waste centre or something like that. But there's been a number of sightings up there over the years as well. So it could be that it's these installations that are drawing these objects in, and you look at other areas of the country as well. You look at down in Suffolk and Norfolk, and down in East Anglia, there are There's a big nuclear power station in Suffolk. Is it Sizewell B? I think it is.
Yeah.
Which is massive. I've seen it myself.
Yeah.
When I've been on holiday down there. And there are now abandoned RAF facilities. There's the one at can't remember the name of it now. It's in Suffolk. The abandoned early warning system and research place. So areas like that seem to attract a lot of UFO activity as well. So I think it's probably installations in cases
Can I just ask, do you think though that these power stations were purpose built in them areas for a certain reason?
Well, they may be. I mean, certainly. I mean, ley lines, for instance. If you look at ley lines, there are the ones that I've looked at around here. There are two main ones that I think I mentioned this last time that cross at Pendle Hill. Yeah. Now there is RAF Menwith Hill.
Not far from me.
Again, not far from you. Yeah, we're too close, Deb. It's frightening. No, there's Menwith Hill, as you know, which is a big early warning system. It's basically a looks out over the North Sea and keeps its eye on
what's going on
with the Russians. Yeah. But it's a early warning system for nuclear strikes. There's a bit that it's an American air base. Now that's built right on the ley line, as far as I can see.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And further along, going up towards the east coast, there's also
Farlingdales.
Thank you. I can't remember the name then. Yeah, Farlingdales, which is again is a military installation, very secret military installation. Drive along the road over the North Yorkshire Moors, and you go past where Farlingdales is. It just looks like a box in the middle of the moors. There's
like
no way.
Concrete pyramid without a top. Now it used to be a golf ball when I was a kid.
Yeah, no way in, no way out.
No,
right.
No doors, no windows, no nothing.
I've never even heard of that place before.
Well, now again, that's on. As far as I can tell, if I get a map out and get a ruler out and draw a line where I think this ley line is, again, that it goes through RAF Menwith Hill and then it goes through Farlingdales.
Yeah,
are you telling me that that's a coincidence? Because I don't think it is. So, are they building these installations in particular places because of something that we don't know about? Absolutely, absolutely.
That's why I've always thought that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% certain of that.
Yeah. It's harnessing some sort of energy in it that they're using for something.
Well, and I mean that's a whole new discussion because ley lines. I'm a big believer that there is natural, whether it's magnetic energy or some other type of energy that runs along these lines. I mean, our ancestors from thousands of years ago built the important places of would there be places of worship, were there places of meetings where they used to meet, Stonehenge, for instance, what was its purpose? We don't know, but it was built there for a reason. It's same with Castlereagh Stone Circle in the Lake District, which again is where one of these ley lines starts from. The one that runs north to south, south to north. There was a reason why it was built there. What that reason is, we don't know. Was it to do with the was it to do with something astronomy? Was it something to do with the sun at a certain time of the year, or the moon, or whatever? I mean, there's a Bronze Age burial mound on the top of Pendle Hill. Now, why? I mean, Pendle Hill is almost 2,000 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
It's about 1,800 and something.
Yeah.
Once you get past a certain point with when you're climbing up Pendle Hill, and it about 1,000 feet, you start to lose vegetation and you start to lose trees.
Yeah.
And I know it's about 1,000 feet because there's a road that runs around the side of it, and my car's got a altimeter on it.
Yeah.
On the sat nav, it'll tell you how high you are. And I remember driving up there once with James in the car. And I went, "Oh, we've just hit 1,000 feet," and yet Pendle itself is then another 1,000 feet above that.
Yeah.
So if you're living in the Bronze Age, 5,000 years ago or whatever, and your clan chief dies, do you drag his body 1,000 feet up the side of Pendle Hill, which is flipping steep, not enough walking up it, to bury him on the top of the hill, or do you bury him down in the valley where it's easy and you don't have to drag him 2,000 feet above? So why? So the question is, why would they do it? There's obviously a reason why they did it, and it obviously had some significance for them. It was obviously somewhere that they it was important enough to them to bury somebody up there, whether it was somebody important in the the tribe or the clan or whatever. But I think that's really interesting, and I think it just adds to the mystery of Pendle Hill and the area around Pendle. And again, talking about the feeling that you get, or I get when I go to Morecambe Bay, I get that same feeling when I'm climbing up the side of, walking up the side of Pendle, stood on the top of Pendle and looking out over the fantastic views that you get on a clear day. There is something about the area that just gives you that feeling of it being special. And I think that feeling has got a lot to do with the fact that there is a lot of paranormal activity. There's a lot of UFO activity, and you can use that argument for places all over the country. The Lake District, for instance, Morecambe Bay, Paul's area up on the northeast coast around Bempton and around there, down on the southeast coast, as I said, around Suffolk and Norfolk and those sort of areas. The Lincolnshire flats, Lincolnshire Wolds, again. I think it's that area is massively atmospheric. There's a lot of history involved around those areas, and you're going back into the mists of time with a lot of those, and I think that's got a lot to do with it. I think things that have gone on in the past, things that have happened in the past, I think they leave something behind, and
definitely,
I think over time it builds up, and if you're lucky enough to be able to pick up on it or have a nice feeling, it's a nice feeling, really. It's a feeling of belonging, I think, more than anything. Somebody asked me, why is it you like to go to Morecambe Bay and go to Ironside and Silverdale and Cartmel and just walk on, go down on the beach and do a bit of fishing. It's because it feels nice. It feels like a nice place, and yet strangely, there's a lot of unexplained phenomena going on, which you would think actually will give it a bit of a sinister feel, but to me it doesn't. It just makes me want to be there more. It's the same with Pendle Hill and the villages around Pendle Hill, and I'm lucky to live in one of those villages. And it's just very, very atmospheric, and it just has a different feel to it to me than anywhere else. Bit of philosophy for you there,
liking that.
philosophical, but it's something. It's taken me a while to work it out. Why is it that I'm so drawn to these places? And it's just that natural energy that it's almost like it sounds a bit daft, but it's like a big hug sometimes, and it just makes me feel that I want to spend time in these places. I was lucky enough, actually, and this is just slightly going off topic a bit, but I mentioned that Sarah's a teacher. Now, at the minute she's working. She's so lucky to be working in this place. It's called Stonyhurst College,
Right.
and it's near Clitheroe, and it's a 16th century. Well, it was built originally by Jesuit priests,
Right.
and it's a private school. It's a private school. So if you go online, have a look. Stonyhurst.
Yeah.
Stonyhurst. It's the most amazing place. Now, a few days ago, I'm off work this week, and Sarah's off work. So she said, "Come on, I've got to go into work and pick some stuff up. Come with me. I'll take you, and I'll show you around." And it was like going into the best stately home that you've ever been in your life.
Yeah.
Wow.
And again, there are ghosts there. There are. I know there are, because I've spoken to people, but I can't speak to people enough to get a full story. But I know this. I mean, I've spoken to people who've worked there in the past, and things have happened. It's actually a boarding school, believe it or not. It is. I mean, there's some really famous people gone there over the years.
Yeah.
It's very, very, very expensive. You know, there's no way
Yes.
the likes of me will be able to afford to send Jen. But they have the historical stuff that they have in there is just amazing. You know, they've got it's like a little diary. This is just one thing, and it blew my mind completely, because I'm really like history.
Yeah.
And they have a diary that was the personal possession of Elizabeth of York. Now, she married Henry VII, so Henry VIII, in effect, if people want to look at it from that aspect. But her handwriting's in it, and it's actually in a glass case, and I looked at it, and it said she'd signed it Elizabeth Plantagenet.
Yeah.
Right.
So she signed it before she married Henry VII after the War of the Roses, because she was Elizabeth of York.
Yeah.
A bit like Deb of York, but she was Elizabeth. And then underneath, she'd then written at another point, "Now Queen."
Right.
She'd written after she got married, "Now Queen." But stuff like that, you think, well, what energy has that got in it?
Yeah.
You know, what history has that got? I mean, there was a locket with a lock of hair in it, and it was Mary Queen of Scots.
Wow.
It was a lock of her hair. I mean, the historical treasures they have in this place, and you've got to bear in mind, I mean, it's like 400 or 500 years old, this building. It's wood paneling, it's stone floors, it's just it's unbelievable. And they've got all these historical objects in there. They've got skulls of martyrs. You know, one of them's got a big hole in the top where it was stuck on a spike outside London Bridge. Do you know what I mean? So, so these things have got, talking about objects, going back to the piano, you know, all the way back when we first started. These objects must have energy attached to them. They've got so much history.
You've got to have.
You know, and just looking at these things, I got a really sort of like fuzzy feeling of, you know, what energy is involved in these things. So yeah, I mean, for somebody like, and Sarah by trade is a history teacher, so she's like completely in her element. But you know, the energy that these objects must have and must give off, I think is quite interesting. You know,
Definitely.
Yeah. Stop copying what I'm saying, will you?
Shut up.
I love stuff like that. I just think,
I
especially when you said about the diary, like we should write "Now Queen." Just thinking about, well, you stood there or sat there and writing it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
that
I mean,
thought on its own is just, to me, is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it was 15, 30 odd, was it, or something like that? You know, I mean, it's and I mean, it's just, I mean, how much must something like that be worth?
Yeah,
you know, because, I mean, they have a first edition of a Shakespeare play.
Wow.
You know, I mean, the library is just, but it is apparently it's because, I mean, I didn't realize, but apparently it's because the Jesuit priests who founded the school, they just used to collect stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
Oh,
and they've just collected things over the years, you know. So
Yeah.
so the energy around. I mean, I would love to do a
imagine.
Oh yeah.
sort of vigil, but it's never going to happen because it's it's a private school and it's
Yeah.
because of what it is and where everything else. It's not going to happen, but I'd love to. I'd love to really sort of spend time
Yeah.
and dig
Yeah.
deep into it and. But I'm really jealous. It's a great place for it to work and
Oh
children.
yeah.
So it's really cool. Really
Like you
cool.
say, with it being an history teacher anyway, that's right up her street, isn't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Although sometimes it's like taking calls to Newcastle. You can. It's like, but yeah. But I mean, we're blessed with stately homes and haunted halls and what have you over here.
Yeah.
There's Samlesbury Hall, there's Turton Tower, there's Horton Tower, and a lot of them are all, there's been very sort of traumatic religious things have gone on over the past, especially during the Tudor period, where there were, we're obviously hopping from Protestant to Catholic to Protestant to Catholic, and a lot of the landowning families over here in Lancashire were predominantly Catholic.
Yes.
So a lot of the old stately homes now, or I say stately homes, the houses, the big family houses that have been, either taken over by the National Trust and opened up as, tourist places where people can go in and look around.
Yeah.
A lot of them have got priest halls.
Yes.
A lot of them have got stories attached to them of priests being done in and murdered, or captured and taken away to be tried, and they were either burnt at the stake or beheaded or whatever. So again, I mean, we're just spoiled really for places to go and just soak up the atmosphere, read about these ghostly sightings. The White Lady of Salisbury Hall, for instance, is an absolute classic, really well-known story, and I know a few people who've seen the figure of a young girl dressed in white. She's often seen floating across the main road that goes past Salisbury Hall, the main A59 road.
Right.
And quite a few times cars of the drivers have thought that they've run somebody over in the car, and when they've got out, there's been nobody there. So that's something that happens quite often.
I've heard of Turton Tower before, but I don't really know anything about it.
You're going to put me on the spot now. No, it's fine. It's not something that I've written about. It's just something that I'm really interested in. This isn't in the book. I've put quite a lot of stuff in about the Pendle Witches actually, but I won't go too much into it because it's actually quite a big chapter, and there's a lot of stuff about other witch trials as well. So if people are interested in the witch trials, not so much actual trials themselves, but what happened up to so the investigations that were made and the interviews and everything else, I've actually gone into quite detail, and some of them are really, really interesting. And comparing them to other witch trials, like the Berwick witch trials, for instance, up in Scotland. If you look at how they conducted those, as to how the records show they conducted the ones at the Lancashire witch trials, completely different. So it's quite interesting. But Turton Tower, there's two skulls found actually. They're called the timber bottom skulls.
Right.
I'm digging right down into my memory now. They were actually found when they were excavating the moat around the tower.
Right.
And it's called Turton Tower, but it's not a tower as such. It's a big home. It's like it's like a sort of fortified manor house, if you like. And they found these two skulls. And the reason they're called timber bottom skulls is because there's actually, although they were found at Turton Tower, there's a small hamlet really quite close by called Timber Bottom, and there's a farm called Timber Bottom Farm. And the story is that they found these two skulls. It's going back a couple of hundred years now, They found these skulls, and they actually took them. The farmer took them to the farm and put them on his mantelpiece in front of the fire.
Grizzly.
Yeah, and they stayed there for a while, no problems at all. And then subsequent owners of the farm, one of the subsequent owners decided they didn't like these skulls, as you would, and moved them, and actually took them back to Turton Tower. Now, there was all hell broke loose, apparently. There was all sorts of poltergeist activity happened. And the only way that they could stop this paranormal activity happening in the farm was he actually went and got the skulls and brought them back and put them back on the mantelpiece, and it all stopped. But at some point again, they'd been moved again from the farm back to Turton Tower. And the last that I read, and I have actually been to Turton Tower, but they weren't on display, unfortunately. But they were there. They're actually in a glass case, but they weren't on display the last time I went.
That's very much like the screaming skulls of Bert and Agnes on the way to Brid.
I've got
a hall there that's the same.
Well, I remember you triggered something. I've actually got a story that I've never told anyone about Turton Tower. Can I quickly tell you?
Yeah.
So it was round about, I was just writing notes about it then, so I didn't forget. Around about 92, 93, we'd gone for a drive. Time from Swinton originally. My mate lived in Kersley.
Yeah.
So we've gone round to his house. It was a Friday night. Thought we'll go along Belmont, go to a couple of pubs. Only drinking like orange and Coke lemonade and that. As you do. So I thought, tell you, we'll go up to Turton Tower. Now, my mate, he had an XR2i with all the old front spotlights on him. That plug in. So we'd gone up, we pulled into the grounds. There's only us there, there's no one else about. It's probably about 9, 10 o'clock at night, middle of summer, so it'd just gone dark. Anyway, we heard this noise, we worked out it was peacocks. Like, you know the noise, mate? So rang him out. Then we could smell burning. And we're looking around, it's like, you know what was going on. And the headlamps on his car, all the wires and all the casing had started melting.
Wow.
But there's 4 of us, and we all got a really strange feeling. And it's like we just jumped back in the car. We drove down the road, like near where there's a load of bungalows, isn't there? As you go down the hill. We pulled up outside there, all the casing and everything. The lights were factory fitted, and it had all melted. And there's no reason. It was all right all the way up there, because we'd gone from Kersley all the way up to Turton, which is about 40 minutes. And we'd been stopping off at a couple of pubs. So we'd been out for an hour and a half, nothing. As soon as we pulled in there, basically his car started falling apart.
Weird.
I know. So
very odd.
And he took it. I think his brother was a mechanic, and he took it to him to have a look at, and he's like, "There's no reason for it to happen."
No,
that's weird.
Weird.
So
we've got plenty of places like that around here that have got ghosts attached to them. So
I think most of these big type stately type homes have, haven't they? I mean, we've got, when Andy came up to Leeds, we've got Temple Newsham, and I saw back in late 70s, early 80s, I saw the Grey Lady there. Well, they call her the Blue Lady, the Grey Lady, but she looked like she was made out of cigarette smoke. Bluey grey, and then she just kind of dissolved.
So sort of like a mist. Which is really what I was telling you about the guy at the allotment with that black pulsating mass. He said it was like a sort of like mist. Smoke
combined together.
I was going to ask you that. Was it smoky or was it like a solid form?
That's how he described it. Right. So like translucent smoky. Rather than a solid ball of something. Sort of like semi see through. But there's been other things have been seen in the area. There goes my dogs.
I was just going to say, what's that?
It's the dogs. You might have to edit this bit out.
It's all right. We'll just go.
We cope with pets.
I think Sarah's letting them out. There's talking about dogs actually. there was the same guy was telling me about the Black Mass. He said, "I'll tell you something else as well." He said, and this is the Black Bull pub that I mentioned before.
Yeah.
He said, I were in there one night. He said, and my mate, he mentioned his name, came in. Now he lives in the next village along, and he always walks to the pub. It's about probably about a mile and a half, something like that. And he walks down past where the allotments are, and it's on a stretch of road. There's no street lights or anything, so it's it's just dark. Anyway, this particular evening, he was in the pub waiting for him, and he come in, and it had been raining outside. He said he was really wet, and he come into the pub, and he said, "You all right?" He said, "Oh no," and he said he looked really shaken up. Shaken up, and he said, "What's up?" He said, "I'm walking, coming down Sawley Road," and he said, "I had a really weird feeling somebody were following me." I said, "I kept looking around." He said, "There's nobody there." He said, "But you know how dark it is." He said, "I actually thought somebody were following me, going to mug me or something like that, really strange all the way down." I said, "It's like I couldn't get in here fast enough," and he was shaking.
Yeah.
And instead of having a pint, he went straight to the top shelf, couple of brandies,
Yeah.
Anyway, while this is going on, there's a woman stood at the bar just getting some drinks, and she sort of like popped her head over and said, "I'm sorry to interrupt you," she said, "but what's happened to your dog?" And this guy turned and looked at her and he said, "I haven't got a dog."
Yeah.
She said, "Well, you came in with one."
Wow.
Ooh.
Well, gone all goosey now.
That's a good one, isn't it? I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good one. So I was like, "Oh, right, okay, fair enough." But he said, he said, "No, I haven't got a dog." So
Weird.
That is crazy.
That could as well be like somebody that used to go to the pub that walked down there that took his dog with him to the pub, and it was a familiar path for the dog.
Like a residual.
Could be anything, couldn't it?
Yeah, like the residual energy of the dog or something like that,
Yeah, the dog appears. It's like, "Oh, we're off to the pub. Come on."
But strangely enough, I'm banned from taking our 2 cocker spaniels in there because they bark all the time.
Do they?
Yeah,
well, that's weird.
But they bark all the time anyway. You've just heard them now.
Right.
but no, they are. I mean, they're quite excitable dogs, but
spaniels are, aren't they?
Yeah, they definitely get excited when they go in there. It might be the fact that they get a bag of crisps between them. I don't know, but
that could have something to do with it, rather than anything spiritual.
well, yeah, top shelf.
Yeah.
But no, so that's interesting. And yeah, I mean, I got an email from a lady. She'd been driving along that same road with her husband. So quite a few years ago. But she said there was this. It was at night. They were driving along. There were only on this particular stretch of road. There was only them on there. There was no cars coming the other way. No cars behind them. No cars in front of them. And she said this ball of light appeared above the hedge and followed them as they were driving down the road. She said her husband sped up and it sped up with them, and he slowed down and it slowed down with them, and then disappeared. It just sort of came up, followed them, and then went back down again. And she said it was just. She said it wasn't an optical illusion. It was physically there. Like this pulsating ball of light that appeared from behind the hedge and followed them and then disappeared behind the hedge again.
Yeah.
And
Intelligent light form.
She actually rang. Yeah, she actually said she rang the police when she got home.
Yeah.
And of course the police said, how much have you been drinking, madam?
Yeah.
And but she said she hadn't.
That's
both her and her husband saw this ball of light. So there is something quite odd about that area. So it's not. Again, it's only a small area, but it's close to Pendle Hill. It's got the stream that runs down. The stream goes under the road there and then goes off down the fields and joins the river at the bottom. And the stream originates up on the side of Pendle Hill. And we were talking about ley-lines and what have you. You start looking at these areas of paranormal activity and UFO activity, and a lot of the times there's water involved.
Yeah.
You know, there's either flowing water like rivers or streams, or there's lakes or ponds, or a tidal estuary in the case of Morecambe Bay. But there's all water involved, and I'm beginning to form this theory that perhaps there is energy which flows through with water, and perhaps there is something. But perhaps we can pick up on that energy, because we're is it 90% water or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
makes you wonder.
Does yeah.
Quite a good theory, that.
Yeah.
Well, it's one that I'm going to copyright before it gets pinched
Yes.
off me, because
I won't nick it off you, Craig.
somebody
I just wrote it down.
somebody
What
will
are you doing?
plagiarise it. Again, I was chatting with Paul about it last night, and we were talking about these so-called investigators that just plagiarise everybody else's work. It's a bit.
There's plenty of them about.
Can be a bit annoying, but it's just nature of the business.
Churning out the same old rubbish.
Yeah.
Some more than others, but I won't go into names. But some more. Some very there's some very famous, especially in the UFO community.
Yeah.
There's some very famous people who I think who are living on, making quite a good living actually out of theories that don't hold a particular amount of
credibility.
It's the same names, isn't it, that keep popping up as well?
Yeah,
there are. But good luck to them. They're making a better living out of this than I am.
and all of us.
Unless people start buying me book in thousands, I'm not going to be able to retire anytime soon.
Well, you're on my list. I shall be getting your book.
Yeah,
good.
I've got a list.
I enjoyed the first one immensely, so I'm definitely going to enjoy the second one.
Thank you. Well, leave me a review, please. If anybody does buy it, it's on Amazon. If you go to my website, there are links to the books, both the books on Amazon. And there's also links to the podcast as well, which I think you might enjoy if you enjoy listening to me waffling on. Then I've had some great
on there somewhere.
You might be, yeah. In fact, I'm going to need to get you back on again. I'm running out of guests.
That's it. Oh, cheers.
I've seen a similar name to mine on there as well.
Yeah, well,
someone pointed out to me today.
I only interview the best people. The best. But yeah, if you've got Kindle Unlimited, then it's obviously it's free on there. I've put it on Kindle Unlimited. You can get it on Kindle or paperback.
Yes.
But I'd like if people can leave me reviews. That'd be really good.
Definitely.
Because I'm still waiting for my first review actually. So I know that I'm the same. I buy a book and I never bother reviewing it. But if anybody can, that'd be fab. Constructive criticism, I don't mind at all.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah, of course. I'm not precious about it. I'll just go and cry in a corner if somebody gives me one
with a bottle of whiskey.
Oh, I've got a right vendetta against whoever gave me 1 star for my last book. I can't find out who it is. It won't tell me. But I've got a right vendetta if I could find out who it is.
No, I don't agree with that. Not 1 star. No, that wasn't me. I give 5 stars.
But it's funny. No, it was actually. Thank you. It's funny because you look at I was looking at Paul's Truth Proof 4 today. I was just looking at the reviews on that, and somebody's given him a 1 star, but not put any comments or not put a name. And you think, well,
so what's the point?
Why?
They do it for the sake of doing it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
it's just to try and trash somebody's reputation. I think.
And the work as well.
Yeah, and the work. So constructive criticism I can live with. In fact, I'm quite happy to receive it. But if you give me 1 star for no reason,
you will be hunted down.
I will find you. I have a very special set of skills.
Dowsing rods.
I've got some dowsing rods you can borrow. We'll find them.
Find them, then use them.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I think that has come to a pretty good timed ending.
It has. It's
Yeah.
been lovely talking to you again.
It's
Yeah,
been
no, it's
great.
been great. It's I can't believe it's been 2 hours. Actually, that's just
No.
flown by,
Wow.
isn't it?
That
Full
has
of
gone so
information.
quick.
Right.
Yeah, and we was thinking we're not even going to get an hour.
Yeah, I
No.
know. I was complaining that I was
You're
knackered.
tired and
I know. We'll let
yeah.
you go to bed now.
I've done too many interviews and got a bit saturated with it all. But no, it's been great. I love chatting about this sort of stuff.
Yeah. We
you
love
know,
hearing about it.
I hope people find what I talk about interesting. I try and be honest about stuff.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I'm not one of these that pretends to be a ghost hunter or an investigator as such, or going around with all these EVPs and all that sort of stuff. I don't do that. I just listen to people. I just collect stories. I've got my own personal experiences. I've got my own theories, and I just go with that, you know. And if people find it interesting, great. If they don't, move on.
Scroll
There's
on by.
plenty of other people that you might find more interesting than me.
Yeah. Definitely.
Well, that's the thing though, because you do it that way. I'd rather come out with the EVP and the camera and the dictaphone and try and get recordings.
Yeah.
Because I think
everybody has their own way.
it's just for me. And that's what gives it the mix and makes it better. That we're not all doing it the same way.
Yeah. That's
you know what I mean. And we all still have stories as well of our own experience. And it's it is a good mix from everyone.
I mean, some people are a bit more sort of theatrical about it, you know. And some people are a bit more scientific about it, and you know, maybe a bit more theory rather than you know, actually
practical.
So
but I think if you just keep an open mind, you go, and it's like when we did the investigation last week before, whenever it was, we got nothing. We've been there 2-3 times and we've had loads of stuff going on in the same place. So it's like there's no point being over the top about it. You don't see anything.
No.
That's it.
But people still enjoy watching though, don't they? That's the point.
It's when, you know, it's when people start making things up that
I don't see the point of that.
Well, it's like there's
really
one
boil.
There's a bit where it looked like there's orbs, and we debunked it. And then I went back the other night. That's coming out on Sunday. I went back to the cemetery, and it was a light. Certain heighted vehicles were hitting a particular headstone. So
the gaps in the hedge.
and also on the pre-record that I did, we went out on Tuesday. That's showing on Sunday. On that one, you can actually hear the cars going past as the lights are hitting it. So everything's in sync. So they're not orbs. Sorry, guys, but they're not. I could have said
certain investigators would have been screaming and.
I could have said they're orbs, and left it at that and let everyone believe. But I'm not like that.
There's no point doing that. That's just what's the point of putting all your energy and effort into something just to make it up? I wouldn't even be involved in it.
So you know, everything I write about, everything I talk about, it's all genuine.
Yes.
You know,
that's how we like it.
Nothing made up. It's all what's come my way.
Tell it how it is.
Tell it how it is.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much again.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
It has.
Pleasure's been all mine. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
So we're going to finish now, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
And don't be afraid.
Bye.